welcome to the Resistance broadcast, everybody. It is Thursday. It is our discussion show. I'm John. Thanks for joining us today. James and Lacey with me as always. Tomorrow, a week from tomorrow, marks the return of The Mandalorian, which means the Mando fan show is coming back, baby! We are coming back, but this time, doing it live, guys. We're doing it live! Mando fan show live. I know we talked about it on Monday a little bit, but you got to promote yourself, right? So, you guys fired up about season 2 of the Mando fan show?
What is this?
I don't like the
season 2 of the Mando fan show.
This season on our podcast. Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's weird though because like we kind of kept it going with the legacy stuff, and now it's like
gallery, yeah.
Chapter 21. Chapter 9. Like, kind of weird.
We do keep track of the episode numbers of the Mando fan show, so it's going to be like
we're just going to have to start over and pretend that nobody noticed.
Or do like 2.1. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, Mandalorian, the Mando fan show 201.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And we can go back and rename all the episodes.
When we tweeted the new logo, someone was like, I read this as John's voice.
The back baby?
Oh, it's back baby.
Yeah.
I think what's going to be fun doing the live show is we would ask people as soon as they watch The Mandalorian to use hashtag MandoFando with their thoughts on the episode, and we would pull them. But now we can pull comments right from the live chat if people are watching along. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the live streams we've done, even though we've only done a couple, is that immediate interaction, because they can hear what we're saying and like bounce off that, and I love that. So I think it's going to add an element, especially when we're going to have guests, you know. So I think it's going to just add another level of energy, and I'm really excited to do the Mando fan show like day of Mandalorian. That's going to be cool. So
yeah, it's going to be fun, and you know, our Resistance officers over on Patreon have supported us in a way that allow us to do stuff like this live stream. Like, we've upgraded our quality and all this stuff over the past year, and this is just another example of like us just going that much further to provide quality content for you guys. So that's exciting.
Speaking of content, Star Wars gaming content, I obviously don't have a system or anything. Lacey, you do. You don't have Squadrons yet though, right?
I don't. I have other stuff going on.
Yeah,
I don't have the time.
A lot going on. James, you dabble in Squadrons a little bit?
I guess you could say dabble. Yeah, I'm not much of a gamer. I did not do this for any of the other games that came out. I always did the YouTube video thing, and I started doing that with Squadrons, but thanks to the old family video, right? Called up family video, and I said, "Hey, do you guys have Squadrons?" And the guy was like, it always takes you back, right? Immediately, like to the 90s or whatever. He's like, we only have one copy. It's checked out right now, but it'll be back on Wednesday. So I called Wednesday morning, and he's like, yeah, I got it. Here, you want me to hold it for you? I'm supposed to put it back. I'll hold it for you the rest of the day when you're coming in, you know, whatever. And I'm like, all right, you know, and I talked to him about prices or whatever. So it was, I believe it was $8.99 for 5 days. So we rented it. And we played through like, you know, probably a quarter of the story one night. And then another day, like a Saturday where we had all day, we went from like noon to 9. And we just like flew through the rest of the story mode, pun intended. And it was great. It's good. I just wanted to have an idea a little bit of like the controls and, you know, the different way the different ships fly and other things like that. Mm-hmm. And I think I have a good grasp on that game now, even though I didn't play multiplayer.
Do you have a specific room away from the chaos of the household that you get to like play the games in?
No, I just went to his house.
Oh, you went to his house? Okay.
Oh, but no, there was absolute chaos because his dog is like one of those never settles down dog. And we also brought over Bennett. So for like 2 hours, they were consistent. I was playing the game a lot like this, like Bennett off, Bennett, no, no.
Oh my god! All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
a
but
whole
Squadrons
lot of that.
sounds amazing, but when am I going to get my family video shirt?
I don't know.
Family Video sponsor the pod. Well, let's
Come to Connecticut, Family Video.
Let's merge.
I miss video stores.
Yeah. All right. I mean, that still blows my mind. As a guy who used to work in a video store, that's
I loved
amazing.
video stores. I loved browsing in video stores, and even if I went and like didn't find anything, just like the process.
My favorite
I'm
part.
a browser.
I won't get too into this because we're a family-friendly podcast. My favorite part of working in a video store were those guys that would walk in and then they would go to the new releases until everyone left the store, and then they mosey on over to that closet. You always knew it. Yet they always had that look on their face. You knew exactly where they were going, but they wanted to make sure everyone left because it's a small town. Everyone cleared out.
That's so awkward.
Yeah, it's more awkward when they hand you the title and you're like, oh boy.
It's even more awkward when you realize it's your friend's dad.
There were some people that you're like, I know you from, and oh boy. But anyway.
Coach Wilson?
We are a Star Wars podcast, and Star Wars is for kids and families and all that good stuff, right? So let's do what we do here and fire up Will of the Force, James.
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
Will of the Force this week is back with 4 questions. All questions are from Resistance officers this week, and that's why we want to say if you want to become a Resistance officer, you want to support the podcast, you can head over to patreon.com/resistance broadcast, and at the major label and up, you can submit topics to Will of the Force and become part of the show. And not to mention, just everything else that goes on there. Obviously, we do like the bonus questions and the poll chats and the monthly Q&A and all sorts of other stuff in that Discord, baby. That Discord, baby. I see people right now as we're recording. They're like, who wants to play Squadrons? Who's in? Who's jumping in? Like, and they're like throwing each other's gamer tags at each other, and they're making their own Squadrons. It's great. So come and join the party. Before we go too further, though, I do want to give a shout out to the Patreon generals, our Resistance officers that are at the top tier. Those people are Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, Neil Shaw, David Probus, John Reese, Micah Harrison, Michael Gaines, Jetta Rosewater, Bethany, Russ Harbison, and Kendall Gellner. Guys, thank you so much for your service. And let's get into the questions. The first one is coming from Commander Cam Ray, and Cam Ray wants to know, will Darth Plagueis be brought back by being explored to some extent in a streaming series? Lacey, you're going first on this one. Are we going to see Darth Plagueis in a streaming series on Disney Plus?
No, we will not. I don't think this is a priority right now. So no, we will not.
Okay.
That's my simple answer this time.
All right. John, what do you think? No, we will not. You want this, though, don't you?
90% yes.
Did you get
Seriously?
that?
I think
Everybody's skipping past my thing. All right, never mind.
the Emperor line. You want this?
You want this, don't you?
That's pretty good. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I agree, Lacey. It's, you say it's not priority now, but they're not going anywhere. So I think eventually down the line, they're going to revisit, because a lot of people really, even if they don't like EU very much, they really did like the James Luceno Plagueis novel. And a lot of people are pulling for that story to be told, where our big bad villain told us he had a master. We want to see this guy. We want to meet this guy, see what this is all about. So I think eventually we will get some sort of young Palpatine, Darth Plagueis type of thing, and Disney Plus would be a great spot for it. So I'm not saying anytime soon. I'm not saying Tom Hiddleston. I know that's people's big thing. I think eventually, when the time is right, they're going to make that story, and we're going to see it in some way or another. Because are we ever? It's either we're gonna see Plagueis in canon in live action one day, or it's never gonna happen. And I gotta lean more towards we're gonna see it. So I think
90%, huh?
90.
When we're in the nursing home, I'm gonna call you and be like, You were wrong.
Kill me before I have to go to a nursing home, please.
It never happened.
Man, it is tricky because I was with Lacey and I went into this question thinking that it wasn't going to happen, but John's kind of convincing me.
No, James, don't do it. Don't do it.
Here, I think his 90% is pretty crazy, but I do think that this is a very popular story, and I think that it also reeks of the, like, how can we wring out original trilogy and popular characters? And we definitely know just about everything that we can about Palpatine from Phantom Menace to Rise of Skywalker. I mean, he wasn't really doing a whole lot in between. I mean, there's that era with Vader and stuff, but that feels like a cameo. That's not like his show. This gives you this opportunity to kind of like side with him and like feel compelled as a character. It's kind of like those shows where like the main character is like a murderer, but you're like, but I kind of get it.
Like you?
Dexter.
I guess, yeah.
Dexter's coming back, by the way.
Dexter's coming
get
back.
Out of here. Dexter sucks.
But anyway, no, I think it's possible. I do think it's possible. So Camray, I don't know if you're yaying or naying this, but I imagine if you're asking us, it's probably because you want us to say, yes, we think it is going to happen. So that's at least
yay.
2 yeses.
Cam
Forgive
yay.
me, Cam. Forgive me.
Cam yay.
Cam yay.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Commander Lando C, new patron of ours, wanted to know, will Sabine Wren take back the Darksaber yet again to bring the relic back to its rightful possessor by the end of Mandalorian Season 2? John, you're going first on this one.
No.
That's what I meant to say.
She won't.
No.
I'm
Why?
leaning towards Sabine is not going to be in The Mandalorian. I think they've tried to make people think she is, but I don't know that that's going to happen. If she is, that'd be cool. Fine. But to inject her into the show and then have it be so much so that she possesses the Darksaber, that doesn't seem likely to me, so I don't think so. I think Din Djarin may end up with the Darksaber. He's building up his attire. It would be another nice, cool added piece to another version of his action figure for merchandise purposes. But no, I don't. I'm going to say no on Sabine being that one.
Lacey, what do you think?
Speaking of which, I would love for Hasbro to make a Force Effects Elite Darksaber, like more than the one that you have, James, like something like legit. Anyway, answer the question, will Sabine? No. I don't think she's in The Mandalorian. I think that people are assuming things with Sasha Banks. I don't think that she's Sabine. I think that she's some other character that we don't know yet. And thus she will not bring back the Darksaber. So I agree with John for once.
I also agree.
Don't wait.
John is I don't know, acting
terrible.
out what he feels like is the Sasha Banks character.
You know who's
he's
really
pulling
good
up
at
a
it, like
blanket, putting it over the head.
A serious stare? Go look at Stephen Ford's Twitter. People post pictures of him from Teen Wolf, and he has the whole like serious.
He's a professional actor. He better be good at that.
Yeah, he is.
Steven.
He's great. I'm saying learn from him, Padawan.
Yeah, because Sasha Banks is winning Academy Awards. All right, James.
Okay, calm down, Sparky. Chill out.
This is how the Millie Bobby Brown thing started, John. So I'd watch it.
Yeah,
There's no such thing as bad publicity, James.
Anyway, yeah, I agree with this too. I don't think I feel like the whole storyline of Sabine Wren getting the lightsaber is a Rebels thing. That we learned the character. She earned it. She learned to fight with it. She like was able to beat Gar Saxon. Like it was totally a thing that was explored in the show. That's the whole thing there. And then she chose to hand it off to someone who is more attuned to rule. So I'm definitely with John that I think that when we look back on seasons 1, 2, and 3 of The Mandalorian, now that we know, like in season 4, whatever, he has the Darksaber has become like this epic character. We're going to know why they chose to tell his story, because he didn't seem like anybody who was destined to be great. And by the end of the series, you're going to realize that that one small, what are they called? Like the foster kids? I can't think of their names right now. Foundling, yeah, of the Mandalorian would go on to rule or to lead them, you know. And I think that the end of the series could be like really crazy.
That is a great story, though. Like someone that they took in ends up to be their leader. That's a good story.
It's a good point, James, because now you have me thinking like, you know, the Mandalorian can be a very just linear, like, yes, this show's about a Mandalorian, and it's one of them, so we're going to call it the Mandalorian. But by the end, it could be that's the Mandalorian.
Yeah. Which if you don't know, is like the term for the top of the line person, the person that wields the Darksaber,
the Mandalore. Yeah.
Is the, I think it's the Mandalorian, is it not?
I thought it was the Mandalore. Yeah,
I just
you
had
might
a
be right.
flashback
Maybe
to
it is.
John and I calling it Mandalorian.
Yeah.
We were wrong. Look.
Which
no,
you guys are
I just find it funny because we were
not
like,
allowed to watch the show, but you still do, and I don't
Break the law.
Yeah.
Oh, can
Rebel
you know, another thing real quick? Whatever. I'm getting slammed over Sasha Banks, so. You know, people like the rumors about the like Cara Dune series, you know, which I don't think they're true.
I don't think that's happening. Yeah.
But you gotta love the people who are like not watching that series. It's like, oh yeah? Then you probably shouldn't watch The Mandalorian either, because I have news for you. She's making money on that show too. So you can't get on your soapbox and be like, I'm not going to watch that series when it comes out, and like have people like, oh, you're so great. Oh, good job for you. We need to stand up for people. And then be like, oh, Mandalorian coming out. It's Cara Dune. Episode 1. Like, just shut up.
I've actually seen people tweet stuff about her being like, oh, I don't support her, but I'll watch the show. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, but I mean, don't be like boycotting shows, because you're not genuine if you're going to watch the other show she's on. That's my point.
Not only that, when you boycott a show based on like an actor's choice, you're not just punishing the actor, you're punishing all the people that wrote it, worked on it, the crew members, the costume people, the makeup people. You're punishing every single human being that had something to do with that show.
And then you better boycott every other show with every other horrible person. Like you better not have a Blu-ray of Braveheart. Like just like you need to like
or Baby Driver.
Yeah, if you're gonna be a boycotter, like if you're gonna be like fake and just do it for some kind of social media clout or pat in your back for being some kind of like, you know, with it person. Just I hate that fakeness. Just don't sit there and say you're gonna boycott a show and then be like, you can't wait for The Mandalorian though. Because guess what? She's cashing checks from that show. So just stop, please.
I never know what to do in those situations where you're like, you don't like one aspect of a company, like the president or something. You know, I just don't know what the best way to handle it. Right, but you can't punish the whole
company based on the one person. Yeah, right. I get it.
The other thing too is like, I guarantee you that there are all those people that we just mentioned who are also on the show that are working in the special effects and all those other things, they too have opinions that you don't like.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Of course.
So, you know, with every single show you watch, no matter how great the lead actors are, like there's definitely like people that, or you know, you don't even know they have the opinions that you don't like. They just don't say them in public or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, Commander Mark Magaha is next on our Resistance Officer
What's up, Mark?
Will of the Force episode, if you will. And Mark wanted to know, will the Leslye Headland Star Wars show ever be mentioned again? His words, not our words. But John, what do you think?
I picked this because it's so interesting to me, because we were just talking last week about how I don't think we've heard Mama or a word about this since like April, when she did an interview about the responsibility of doing it or something like that.
Was that the last time we heard about this? Oh my
I
gosh,
think,
this year is like one big blur to me, guys.
I could be wrong. I could be way wrong. I think yes. But you know, it's one of those things where we've seen lock and key projects just like not happen. The Benioff and Weiss were supposed to do multiple movies, theatrical, big blockbuster films. They left. Where's Ryan Johnson? We can beat that over the head.
Boba Fett stuff.
Yeah, the Boba Fett movie.
J.D. Willard, is that a person?
J.D. Dillard. He was supposed to make a movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't heard anything else about Kevin Feige's producing a movie, unless he's tied to Taika, right?
I can only imagine the projects that we just never hear about.
I think it's possible we hear about this again, but it would not shock me at all if this, whatever she had going on, whatever's going on, goes out the window, especially if Kathleen Kennedy leaves. So will we ever hear about it again? I'll say, will it ever be mentioned again? Yes, I think so.
We also mentioned on Monday's episode about how, they were working on Mandalorian season 3, like before season 1 was even out and all this stuff. And we discussed this whole concept of like, people get paid to actively work on projects that are still like totally blind. Like they don't know if they're going to go forward or not.
Yeah. 10 years in the future. Yeah.
We want you to create and develop and work on this show just so that we can look at it and go, yeah, for sure, we're more confident about not moving forward with that because we just wanted to see it. We wanted to see it visually and get it. Yeah.
The Star Wars, the Underworld thing that they did filming for and stuff, and that was George Lucas's and it didn't get off the ground. Yeah.
Pablo said that they've worked on stuff that he said he was working on stuff that's like 10 years from now, and then he's worked on stuff that's never seen the light of day or whatever.
Yeah, that's absolutely one of those like trade runs that's like George Lucas is developing a Star Wars television show. True? Yes. Did it ever come to existence?
You know what?
No.
Maybe it's possible we never hear about her show again.
Yeah. But they did announce this. This was coming from them, which is why I think you are right on that we will hear from it again.
Yeah.
And usually, I mean, there's a couple out there that like the Rian Johnson thing is probably the big outstanding one, but for the most part, every one of the projects that they've announced, Star Wars has announced, has come to fruition. So I got to go with yes, we are going to see this mentioned again. Lacey, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we're going to see it mentioned again because, like you said, James, they've already brought it up a couple times. She did an interview about it. It's been kind of in the public eye. They're going to mention it somehow. I think we're in an interesting time, guys, and I'm saying this to the people listening, that COVID has provided a time where it's changed film and TV production. Not just that, but like everything, but mostly film and TV production because everybody has to be spaced out and there's guidelines and all this other stuff. And then not only that, it's provided companies an out if they need one. If something's not going well, they have this kind of card off to the side, kind of like Lando where he's pulling it out of his sleeve and he's about to play it against Han Solo. Like they're standing by with this COVID as an excuse of, hey, it didn't work out because of COVID. And no one can be mad. Like, no one can get upset or say that they didn't get what they wanted or whatever because they can just always fall back on this. And I guarantee you're going to see this excuse for the next 2 to 3 years of things that aren't happening. It just happened at Netflix. They canceled Glow already for another season because of COVID. So I guarantee that, yes, we will hear about this series again, but I could see COVID playing a role in being that easy out for companies that want to get out of a project that's either not going well or not fitting their production schedule or their vision for where certain brands are going.
I think Glow is doing well.
When you say play a role, do you mean COVID has been cast as the lead role in Leslye Headlands?
Like, role in the sense of like it's a chessboard
solves
and they're
the villain
one of the
problem
pieces
for Star Wars.
And the chessboard of Star Wars.
I agree.
Hey, they can play that
I agree completely.
piece of if they want to get out. They could say like, hey, it's just we won't be able to shoot this for a long time, and it's just not working.
The COVID card,
and it's not like it's unprecedented among Star Wars news because they've said we're pushing the movies back.
Yeah, I think they're going to use this for productions, staffing. You're going to see stuff in the next 2 to 3 years probably where they're going to be like, oh, it's not happening anymore because of COVID. And people will just go, oh, that sucks,
it's
man.
definitely an awesome PR.
I guarantee publicists are like, Yes.
Like
my black hole for the next 3 years.
Publicists back in 1919 were like, Spanish flu. Sorry, we couldn't do that. We couldn't do that radio special.
Yeah. But overall, I think they will mention this again. I don't think it's going anywhere right now, but.
Yeah. It's so funny. Meanwhile, like Marvel's over there, like, okay, we pushed back this one movie, but this other one's getting moved up. You know what I mean? Like they're not canceling or hiding anything. They're just reorganizing, reshifting, and stuff like that. Do you know to this day, there's only ever been one Marvel movie that was like big time announced that they pulled back from, and that was the Inhumans thing. And
oh my God, I forgot about that.
They moved it to a television show, and then the television show was like mediocre and quickly got canceled. Yeah, because it was being pushed by someone in the television industry.
COVID?
No, not because of COVID. This was all before that.
Are they still doing the thing with Angelina Jolie? Or was that Inhumans?
What is that? I don't know anything with
Magnificent 3?
No, they were doing a Marvel show with Angelina Jolie where she played a certain, like, Immortals, I think, or something like that. Someone in the comments is going to correct me what it is. But she was out on the stage at D23 about it.
Really? Mm-hmm. Immortals. You're not thinking of the one that's still upcoming, is it?
No, I'm saying, like, it might be. I don't remember what the name of it is.
What is the name of that show? It's not Inhumans.
And then obviously the other big kind of up in the air question with Marvel in particular.
Was it Eternals?
Black Panther.
Marvel Eternals?
Eternals. That's the thing that I'm trying to think of.
Yes.
So who did you say was involved? Cher?
How the hell did I know that?
Angelina Jolie.
Oh, Angelina Jolie.
Marvel's so good at marketing. It's in my brain somewhere.
But I literally was going through I-words. I was like, Inhumans, Immortals.
Right.
You said Immortals, and I was like, I think she means, but I couldn't think of what it was. But John nailed it. Yeah, it's Eternals. Yeah, which
Sorry,
is really the same
take
word.
Us on a tangent.
This topic has been eternal in Will of the Force.
All right.
All right, Admiral Dave, aka Indie Dave, on our Patreon,
just got his mug.
Asked us a question.
He sent us with
and he has that tauntaun too. You can send it to me, Dave, any day.
Will Disney try to create... Oh, this is interesting. Did not mean for this to happen, but this was Dave's question. Will Disney try to create an MCU style of crossover shows over the next few years that lead up to a big event, whereas the characters from all the shows come together for either a movie event or Disney Plus or something, or in the theater, something along those lines. So, Dave, you managed to predict the future here.
It's like I knew.
Anticipate. Yeah. But yeah, let's go with John on this one. What do you think?
Not as directly or architecturally as Marvel did it, but like we've talked about, I think you're gonna see Baby Yoda cross paths with Rey in like the next trilogy or whatever that continues her story, because in 10 years they're gonna drop a trailer on us showing the return of Rey, and it won't be like her face or anything, because then that would have gotten leaked that they filmed with Daisy Ridley, but you're gonna see her lightsaber ignite or something. It's gonna be a teaser, and it's gonna get everyone all amped up again. I'm getting chills just thinking about it, that she's coming back, but they're gonna like
that lightsaber. Am I right?
Right, and they're gonna bring like Baby Yoda into that because they know how popular he is, and that ups the draw for that vehicle, since they're going to need something without the reliance on like the old cast. So I think they're going to do that sort of thing, but I don't think it's going to be one of those, here's this person show, this person show, this person show, and then we're all going to do the movie. I think it's going to be more like, this character exists here. It makes sense if they cross paths and something happens here. I think Star Wars storytelling is a lot different than Marvel storytelling. Especially the Marvel can do anything with the multiverses. There's so many things they can do and reboot things.
The Spider-Man stuff is getting me so pumped.
But Star Wars is more of that soap opera thing where it's just like, there's only one shot we're going to tell this. There's no reboots. There's no, we got to make sure this is right. So I don't see them doing that as directly, but you are going to see people in other places, but it's not going to be one of those like follow that bird where it's like, and now everyone's in this movie together.
Follow that bird. What a great reference.
Lacey,
I love that movie when I was a kid.
Me too. Also, like all Muppet movies where they all show up, like the Christmas one where they all show up at Christmas and they're just like hanging out in the Fraggle.
There's something feel good about Muppets and how they nod. It's always.
That's one of my favorite.
Puppet. What?
It's one of my favorite 30 Rock jokes too, where like
again with the 30 Rock.
You gotta watch it, John.
You got me watching.
We're getting into
Werewolf got me watching
season.
Haunted Mansion on Monday.
They show what a character sees, and he sees the world as the Muppets. So they turn all the main characters on the show into Muppets for an episode. And one of the best gags is he's talking to the Tina Fey character, and she's in the room, and then she like walks out of the room like a Muppet does, you know, or whatever. Like, yeah. And then they cut back to real reality, and she walks out of the room like that.
It's so good. It's so good.
Tina Fey is great.
All right. Lacey, what did you think of the big crossover?
I'm going to be totally lame and say 100% I agree with John. Everything he said is what I think. You're so welcome.
I think that John was saying a couple things, because I too agree. I do agree. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think one of the things that John left out here is that, he said Marvel can do anything. One thing that Marvel has done is they've put all of their characters and all of their stories in an era of time that is just kind of like now, current time. And Star Wars really can't do that. They would have to have like 3 television shows all taking place in the same era, and people don't want that. I mean, I would think it was cool, and I was like down. I would be okay if they did it, but I really think the benefit to Star Wars is that they have thousands of years to play with, you know what I mean? And I know they generally stick within this like 60-year span or whatever, but when you look at Marvel, I mean, they're generally, they stick in like a 20-year span. Like it's like right here, and all those characters are all kind of, all their events and all their movies are all happening at the same time, and that just doesn't happen in Star Wars. And I think that's the biggest detriment to this, because even if you look at like right now, you're never going to see Ewan McGregor, or you're never going to see Obi-Wan and Din Djarin and Cassian Andor team up somehow, because it doesn't work. They're too far spread apart. So I just don't think it's going to happen, and that's in a way it's unfortunate. The only way it would be possible is if they started something new, but again, they're not going to put like all those TV shows. Yeah, they're not going to do it. It's not going to happen unless it is the High Republic. I mean, that's kind of happening in the books, but it's not really like live action stuff. All right, that's it. For Will of the Force, we are done. John, I'm going to send it over to you to let everybody know what we're talking about this week.
All right, time for our discussion. Did the Star Wars sequel trilogy borrow more from George Lucas than we thought?
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
All right, so before we get into the discussion, I just want to remind everyone that we have Make Solo 2 Happen pins.
Boom.
That you can buy at teespring.com/makesolo2happen Clever title. Almost like Star Wars Andor. But yeah.
Spy games.
So we had to obviously, front these to have them made. So there's only a certain amount made. So if you support Make Solo 2 Happen, you want to put it on, your jean jacket, your backpack, whatever you have with your, geek gear, slap it on there, because one of the big ways to spread the word about Make Solo 2 Happen outside of the bubble of social media, we already took care of that, is being out there, out and about. So get your pin, slap it on something, and rep it, because we got to try and make Solo 2 happen. So check that out. And also the other swag too. All right, so the discussion this week, George Lucas gave Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm story treatments for what would have been his sequel trilogy. In a famous interview with 60 Minutes, he revealed Disney took the treatments but ultimately told George they weren't going to use them. The wonderment of George Lucas's sequel trilogy was re-sparked recently when Pablo Hidalgo's Star Wars Fascinating Facts book revealed that Lucas intended on Luke Skywalker dying in his episode 8-2, which was a divisive decision among fans that happened in The Last Jedi. So let's speculate a bit on just how different George Lucas's sequel trilogy would have been based on information we know from interviews, quotes, books, and the lot, and try to paint a picture of what it might have been. Obviously, this is going to involve a lot of speculation on our part, so bear with us, but this is why you're here to listen to us, because this is what we do on the podcast. And would fans have liked it? So I'll kick things off just by trying to connect some dots. First, George Lucas's comments about his stories, which were that he gave them to him and they kind of said they weren't going to use them. But then at the same,
if Bob Iger just took the sheet and just went like this and put it right into a shredder.
No, yeah,
like
I was
Barney
just picturing that
in How I Met Your Mother. It just goes. Pew!
Yeah,
Just
it's like as
"Thanks
he's
so
handing
much,
him.
George.
Yeah. George's
Yeah,
like,
I'll be sure to check these out right away.
George is like, I wrote that with a pencil. That's my only copy.
Or it's like The Office when Michael goes, "Did you file those things?" She's like, "You mean the trash can? You told me to file them in the trash can."
Right. Like road trip, Barry about the tape. Did you make a copy? Because if you made a copy, we could watch the copy. He said they got rid of his stories, but we've seen his quotes over the past few years where he kind of trickled things out there. He wanted it to focus on the wills, but also how the midichlorians manipulate and create the Force and communicate with the wills, and that's I think that's the weird part they wanted to jettison. But the part that brings it home, that I think is the good part, that maybe the stuff they used, is the fact that George Lucas, even in the 60 Minutes interview, where he said the whole white slavers thing about Disney, and then he was like, "Oops, shouldn't have said that." He said, "What people don't understand is this is a family soap opera. That's all Star Wars is. It's about this one family and these different generations of this family." And I think his intention was to be a little similar to what people wound up doing in the EU and have twins of Han and Leia, a girl and a boy, and the boy being the one that turned to the dark side, kind of like a Jason Solo thing, because he did indeed have Luke exile on an island, and Phil Shostak from the art department showed concept arts of Luke looking like an old samurai. And Shostak said that George's idea was Colonel Kurtz in Apocalypse Now, that old lost colonel who went crazy and they had to go up the river to find him. They wanted Luke to be in that mental space, and the girl had to go on this quest, kind of like in Apocalypse Now, to go find him. So there's a lot of similarities there, and it's been documented that Michael Arndt was working with George Lucas to create his Episode 7. Michael Arndt has a writing credit for The Force Awakens, so there is that connection there. JJ was involved with Michael Arndt, and they trying to pass things along. They probably took things they liked, which was the personal stuff. Like, okay, so we have the girl and we have the boy, but we're going to twist it up and do a little different. The midichlorian stuff, we feel like fans don't like that. We're going to push that away. So all that stuff George wanted to do, we're going to push that away. But the human stuff we're going to keep. So that's where I'm starting. So I think that's where the similarities lie, or with the people and that sort of thing, although they may have twisted it up a little differently than what George wanted. So I don't know who wants to pick it up from there.
James can go.
That's my initial thoughts out of the gate.
Well, Lacey, you always do this to me. I would rather hear your thoughts first.
No. You just hit me with like the reverse card in Uno.
Yeah.
Like, no, draw 4. So the way I see it is that, first of all, I think fans probably would still react the same that they did with the movies we got, whether it was George or not. I think that they had certain reactions with the prequel trilogy, and they're still going to have those reactions with the sequel trilogy, no matter who writes them. The stuff about Luke, I remember seeing that from Phil and reading the stuff from Pablo, which makes sense that they would pull that from George, especially because it's Luke Skywalker, which is like the Star Wars character, So it makes sense that they would pull those threads from George's story. But again, it kind of, and I'm coming from my own personal perspective on this, of from childhood to adulthood of my connection with Luke Skywalker and how I viewed him personally and connected with that character. I don't think I would have been happy with that character and the way that they wrote him as this guy on an island by himself and then he dies, because I had a certain view of him. Now, that's to get to be clear, this isn't me saying that George or Rian Johnson are wrong, because it's not my story to tell. I'm just saying from my own personal perspective, I have a certain view of Luke Skywalker, and no matter what they write, unless it's what I have in my head of what I think of Luke Skywalker, I'm probably never going to be happy with what I get. And I feel like that's where a lot of fans lie, is like, they're like, oh, well, that's not the Luke that I know. Like, I remember the hashtag not my Luke was floating around a lot after The Last Jedi, which I think is just kind of... It's understandable from my own personal perspective, but it's insulting to the people that are writing the story and coming up with these characters and telling the next phase of where this character goes. Like, again, like, we don't own these stories. But it is super interesting as someone that loves film production and video production and the whole idea of concept to actually seeing it on screen. The idea that George came up with these ideas on his own, and they're ultimately the same ideas that everybody hated in The Last Jedi. In the sense of everybody hated, I'm saying a majority of fans were unhappy with it. Like, ranging from diehard fans to fans that are probably more casual that I talk to at like work and stuff. All of them said, that's not the Luke I was expecting. So even if Rian took what George originally had planned, I don't think whether George wrote it and directed it or Rian Johnson wrote it and directed it, fans would have been happy because they have a certain view in their head that they want to see.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
I was agreeing with you a lot on that, but I will say that I don't know that it. Do you think that the problem that people had was the fact that Luke Skywalker died, or do you think it was the negative like version of him that people didn't like?
So I think that overall, if I was to put money on this, I would guess that it's the view of Luke Skywalker ditching his family and friends to go on an island by himself and be negative and be this like down in the dumps, depressing, like I've given up on everything guy. Then the death part. The death part is sad. No one wants to see their favorite characters die. But the way that he dies is so heroic that you can't be upset with it. Like in the theater, I remember I cheered. Everybody else cheered when he saved the day again as Luke Skywalker and died. And yes, it was sad, but he still was the Luke that I personally had remembered from the original trilogy. I think overall my issues with The Last Jedi, with Luke in particular, are she sees him and he's not who she thinks he is, which is similar to the same thread that I feel like Mark Hamill has commented on of, this isn't who I think this character is.
So that's kind of where I was coming at this story is I think that at the core of what we're discussing today, it's, hey, Luke Skywalker died in episode 8 and fans were mad, but George Lucas was going to put that in anyway. Right. But it's like the path to the death, I think, is what more people are upset with. Because I mean, George Lucas wrote that he was a hermit and all this other stuff. My question though is, would George Lucas's version have been similar? And I think that's also part of this discussion, which we're talking about, you know, how much of George Lucas's original ideas were involved in this. And when I think about what Rian Johnson chose to do with Luke's character, I think it comes from an explanation of the religion that is the Jedi. Sure. And so he, like, to me, if you would have told me, you know, in 2004, like, hey, eventually they're going to do episodes 7, 8, and 9, and Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Leia are their character deaths are going to be showcased in those movies, but the idea is that they're going to be handing them off to the next thing, I would have been like, absolutely, of course. 100% that's going to happen. We're going to get to see these characters die in heroic ways or whatever, but we'll get to meet new characters that rise in the absence of their last group of heroes or whatever. Yeah, that makes so much sense. But anyway, going back to the exploration of the Jedi thing is like, we had Obi-Wan Kenobi show up, an older person in the original trilogy, and he dies in the movie, and everybody was okay with it because they didn't see the prequels. But, you know, we've talked about that, like had the prequels come out and then it's like, oh, Obi-Wan's going to be in it. This is great. And then they like kill him off in the first movie. People probably would have had a problem with it. Now, granted, though, the way I kind of look at it is Obi-Wan died as someone who was still at the top of understanding, like from birth, like at the top of understanding his place in that religion. And he understood that religion because he was with all these other fellow people and other stuff. And Luke got into it late and was absolutely on a high. He's like, this is what I want to be. This is what I'm going to be. I found it. This is my place. And throughout that original trilogy, yes, he is totally there. But Rian Johnson understands the Jedi religion. So he kind of cultivated this idea that, like, what if Obi-Wan or what if Mace Windu or what if any of these characters who were great Jedi now were kind of put into this position to explore all of their faults and stuff, you know what I mean? And it turns him into this place where he's like very loyal to the Jedi, and he's like, I am a Jedi through and through and I always will be, but I don't know that there should be any more, so I'm making this personal sacrifice. I think if anybody was going to explore the Jedi religion as deeply as Rian Johnson did, probably would have been George Lucas. George Lucas probably would have explored those ideas of Luke finding out what it really means to be a Jedi and what it takes to be a Jedi and saying, I don't know about all this. So he was either going to show up not a Jedi, or he was going to show up a Jedi who has decided maybe not to keep spreading it.
I agree. I think George Lucas, whether it's on purpose or he just finds himself telling similar stories to George Lucas, I think there would have been a massive parallel mirror to how Luke died to how Obi-Wan died. I think it wouldn't have been one of those projection things. He would have left the island. He would have ignited a lightsaber and did some sort of sacrificial moment to protect.
He would have fought someone, yeah.
Yeah, he would have died in a similar way to Obi-Wan did. He wouldn't go too on the nose with it, where he does like a wink or that sort of thing. But it would have been a situation.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going by like how I think George Lucas tells his stories, and I don't know that he would have brought himself to some sort of, you know, this forced projection twist type of thing. But you know, and you know, that's just me guessing. That's my speculation there. But another element to George's story that he, you know, we've talked about how he contradicts himself, and at one point he said that these characters were going to be the boy and the girl, the Darth Vader grandchildren, the twins, whatever, were going to be like 20 because it wasn't going to be another Phantom Menace situation. And I think he says those types of things because I still think he takes it very personal how people felt about the Phantom Menace and the reactions to that. So
I love the Phantom Menace.
And he's a very sensitive guy. You know, like even in that interview, the 60 Minutes interview, he's still very hurt about how people felt about the prequels. And he's like, I'm just here to tell my stories. And, you know, if people like them, great. But, you know, I'm here to tell the stories. But I do feel like he would have made a reactionary decision with his sequel trilogy different from based on fan reaction to the prequels. And we saw him do that in the prequels where he kind of phased Jar Jar out a bit.
Yeah,
if people love Jar Jar, he would have been a big part in that whole trilogy. Agreed. He heard the backlash and he dialed him back out, phased him out pretty much. So I think he would have tried to change things for his sequel trilogy. But then you have another part here where he's unquoted saying that the girl in the draft, and this might be from the Pablo book, was supposed to be 14, which is a lot younger than Rey. And then that, to me, triggers this thing like, I think a big part of the difference in George Lucas's story, let alone the fact that these would have been twins and not two separate people, I don't think it would have been this heavy romance between the two young characters. I think it would have been more of the sibling, I gotta save my sibling type of thing, like Luke and Leia, because I don't think George, and whenever he's talking about Star Wars, he doesn't talk about romance and that sort of thing. He's talking about families and the soap opera inside that family. And
How old was Anakin when he was with Padme, though?
Like 18. So, but he had to tell that story because obviously they had the twins. That story had to be told because the original trilogy existed. Like the romance in the original trilogy was the side thing between Han and Leia. The main character, Luke, wasn't involved in a romance. And I think he would have done that same thing here. There would have been romance involved in the story some way, but it would have been the central focus the way like Rey and Kylo Ren were. So I think there would have been a big departure there because he thinks, this is for kids and stuff. He wouldn't have been, like Rian Johnson went pretty hot and heavy with the Last Jedi, in my opinion.
He definitely did. I mean, Kylo Ren with his shirt off is definitely not a little kid scene.
And then the last thing here, remember that video I was talking about on Monday about the promotion for The Force Awakens, and J.J. Abrams got a question from George Lucas, and it made J.J. smirk. I have hopefully this audio works out here. I'm going to play it.
J.J., what happened to Darth Vader's grandchildren?
Oh, George. This is great. You tell me, man. You made all this shit up.
So it's almost like a wink to him saying, like, I wrote Darth Vader's grandchildren into my treatments. I know your script for The Force Awakens. Hey, what happened to Darth Vader's grandchildren? And that's why JJ was like, oh, George, this is great.
You guys.
You. So I think it's one of those things.
And you tell me, because he knows, I know you already wrote that.
Exactly. So I think that was kind of like, looking back now, that little exchange there means a lot more, because I really do think George was going to focus on, and the EU fans would be happy about that, the grandchildren of Darth Vader, being, two of them, and that being the main story, like fighting for your sibling and that sort of thing. And I don't know. I think that is what the main difference would have been. And then you wouldn't have had this whole Rey Nowhere thing and stuff, and Rey Nobody and who's she, and I think that's where things get different.
I think it has to be recognized as well that if George made these movies, the whole argument of this person doesn't understand this character would be thrown out the window, which we see a lot as Star Wars fans online is, oh, he didn't understand Luke and they didn't understand Han and that Leia would never do this and this doesn't make sense. And you can't do that when it's George Lucas. So I feel like that argument would be just completely different.
Yeah. That's true. That problem
I guess so.
Exist.
But they did
just
that
with those in particular, I think.
You would have people say he got old and lost his way or something.
But they did that to Lawrence Kasdan too. They're like, oh, Lucasfilm doesn't understand Solo. That's not Solo.
Yeah, but those, honestly, like, you know what though about that? About that, honestly, a tangent. Those idiots probably don't even know that Lawrence Kasdan wrote Empire or Return of the Jedi or The Force Awakens, and they just see this, like the shark with the eyes rolled back. It's Disney. It says Disney on it. Stinks. It like Solo is like the most friggin' George Lucas Star Wars movie they could have made post George Lucas. It drives me nuts when people just say it's so.
John is about to punch out anyone who insults Lawrence Kasdan.
It's just a fact, though. I mean, he wrote the best Star Wars movies. Like, what are they talking about?
Including Mike Tyson, who is the boss in Punch-Out.
Yeah. That's a great game. Yeah. Well, first, any thoughts on what I said in regards to that deviation in terms of maybe it wouldn't be much of a romance and what his focus would be?
I wanted to cover too why I said I disagree with the thing, because George Lucas came after The Force Awakens a little bit because they did too much of like an homage to, he goes, they just kind of did the same thing again, which is fine and I understand it, but I would have done things a lot differently, right? So I don't necessarily know that he would have done some of the stuff that you were saying as like a wink to Obi-Wan and kind of like it paralleled the same thing.
That's fair. Sure.
I mean, I know he does this whole like it rhymes or whatever, but I think that has been blown out of proportion. I definitely think that the prequels definitely did not retell the story of the original trilogy in any way, and they definitely had their own thing. So I don't think that we would have seen winks like that, like, oh, it played out the same way, wouldn't you know it? And that would be more of like a fans thing where they take two screenshots and put them next to each other and go, it's a beautiful piece of art that they planned out.
No, yeah, right. And I don't mean like a oh wow, that's an obvious wink. But I mean, I could see Luke going out in the same sacrificial way.
Whereas I do think the Disney era sequel trilogy movies did intentionally sort of play into the like, oh, it rhymes, look how it's familiar, look how it's the same, where while still being very different. I think like if one was like 60% that, George would have been like a 20% that, you know, like they just kind of leaned a little bit in that direction. But about the romance and stuff too, yeah, I agree with that. I've never been one of the people that's like, romance is a big part of Star Wars. Where's the romance? I understand the story of Anakin and Padme, but I think that is because that had to happen. Whereas like the story of Han and Leia was just kind of there. It just kind of existed. And then you wanted to tell the story of how Darth Vader became who he became. Well, he became because he loved and lost his love. So there's going to be love in that story inherently, whereas the Han and Leia stuff was there. So I also agree that I don't think George Lucas would have necessarily leaned on any sort of romance in the sequel trilogy either. Whereas I think like Disney, not that they don't understand the characters or the stories or anything like that, because people will argue all day that the romance is a Star Wars thing. But I do think they thought that's an element that we need to have, you know, somewhere in this. And it's just unfortunate that it was like the main characters, and it could have easily just been, you know, side characters. Like, I mean, it still could have been like Rey and Poe or whatever, but it could have been the Poe and Finn thing or whatever. Like, if you wanted to tell a story of romance, you could have told it adjacent to the main protagonist and antagonist. You know, it didn't have to be that. But anyway, it's all sidestep. Well, I'm trying to compare to if he Disney's version versus what maybe George Lucas's version would have been. If
he kept it as Darth Vader's grandchildren, and it was the one went dark, one went light, and those are your main. I mean, there's obviously not going to be a romance there unless George is like, well, the Game of Thrones is pretty interesting. So
hey, I knew they were brother and sister when I had them kiss an Empire.
Yeah, exactly right. He's like, spoiler, surprise twist here. No, but I think he would have had romance in his trilogy, but like we're saying, it would have been other developed characters getting involved in that way, or something or other. I don't know. Lacey, what do you think?
I think that George definitely would have had romance somewhere. I don't know if it would have been the forefront story like you guys are saying. I think it would have been kind of like an aside, like the main character.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right, finds love along the way. Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you. Okay. But I think that ultimately, if we're comparing it to what we got, the reason that it seems so awkward in the sequel trilogy, the romance side of things, and it seems so in your face, is because at the same time, I don't think they fully went for it. I think they only went like 1/3 for it. And then the rest of the time they were like, I don't know, we're going to dial it back.
I agree completely.
So I feel like if George was going to do it, he would have made it like an off to the side thing, so that if it wasn't so in your face, it wouldn't seem like a failure like it did in the sequel trilogy. Like, I feel like if they had gone full for it, we would be having a different conversation right now.
I agree completely. Yeah, because I feel like a lot of it existed and it's there, and Kylo Ren clearly
has feelings for Rey.
Yeah, wanted to be with her or found himself being drawn to her.
And both the actors think that too. Yeah,
she may be less so, but it was clearly there with him. But like, they didn't press their foot on that, and it's, you know, in The Force Awakens, there's no romantic chemistry there.
It's only when you read into it,
the tension builds up in The Last Jedi. I think fans latched onto it and really cooked it up and built it up more so than it was actually on the pages. And maybe Lucasfilm should have done that, and then the payoff in the end would have felt more heartbreaking, but it fell flat when they kissed, because it would have been like, because I remember when you and I were watching it at the premiere, sweet brag, I go, like, when the kiss happened, I was almost like a pen in my mind. It was like, oh, there it is, there that is, there you go thing.
So as someone that is a Reylo that was like totally like 110% in, like wanting to see it happen, what I got for the Rise of Skywalker, when that kiss happened, I was like, oh no. Because immediately I just thought, first of all, this isn't that romantic. And second of all, this only means a bad thing will come after this.
It was almost like I already saw him fall to the ground after when it happened. I was like, there's the kiss.
Just everything about it.
Because they played it in reverse, John.
It's just everything about it. Like when we watched it, I remember, and like, John, I remember when it happened, you kind of looked at me really quick, and I remember just being so like, oh no. Yeah, like this is not gonna go well.
It's like, all right, check they kissed, and check he's dead.
And he's dead.
So to be clear here, I think we've gotten a little off topic of like, you know, Reylo and stuff like that, because I don't think that's necessarily where we were going.
Well, we're saying, to get back to it, George probably wouldn't have heavily centered his story on a romance.
Yeah. I do want to throw out there, though, because we had that Ask the Resistance question on Monday, and we were talking about the dyad and stuff, and I think, I really think that is JJ's trying to save the fact that none of it was romantic. And I think it's very hard to ride that line and replace what he came up with, but it is really interesting to think of, like, I haven't done this, but it would be a fun way to look at it, is go back and rewatch Force Awakens and The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, rewatch that, and just understand that every single time they're in the room with each other, the Force is pulling them together somehow, and they can't explain what it is, but it's not romantic, but they just have this feeling. And it's weird because we don't have an explanation for the term dyad. No fan would have come up with
I would
that.
like to hear what George
Maybe
Lucas says
they'll
about
explain
dyad.
that they were connected in the Force in some sort of, you know, unseen power. That's made up, that no fan would have come up with. So the only thing our brains are able to connect with is it's clearly romance that they're feeling. They feel love and sexual attraction towards each other, or something along those lines. And it's like, JJ is, I think, in the last movie trying to say, no, that wasn't the case, but it's too far gone at this point, so they had to like play into both.
And to that point, James,
but we need to go back. Yeah.
You know, they could have been doing a lot of pulling from George's stories in terms of, you know, people are like, wow, it was really gutsy for Ryan to kill Luke. And, you know, when Ryan in his documentary, he's like, I just thought that was the right choice for the character to make. And it's like, yeah, but you also read those treatments, and apparently George Lucas was doing the same thing. So that probably made you feel a little more confident to make the move.
Yeah.
If the guy who created Star Wars did the same thing. So, you know, thanks for being brave, Ryan, but, you know, I would do Disney. I would feel more confident doing it if George Lucas did the same thing too.
Disney was very confident in The Last Jedi.
They felt really good about that.
They felt so good about that movie.
I think they were more pumped on that than Force Awakens, and they pushed Force Awakens big, but I think they were like, how are people going to react to this? They love The Force Awakens, and they're like, sweet, we got the next one. It's going to be amazing.
The marketing was more than The Force Awakens for The Last Jedi, I felt.
We've already signed Ryan for 3 more movies. You're going to love it.
And Lacey, like you said about the COVID card before with the PR move, they had the George card. And they're like, if people really flip out about this, at any time we want, we can drop George's pages on the table and be like, look at page 76. George Lucas had Luke Skywalker die in the second movie.
Just mention it, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. The one last thing I kind of and you know, cheers to the directors, because they could be falling on their swords to protect, you know, the treatments. Disney's probably like, we don't want people to know how much of George's stories we borrowed, because we want them to think that we're able to make our own ideas, which is another thing I'll get into later. But how do you guys think George Lucas would have handled Carrie Fisher's death? That's the last thing I'd like to bring up, because he even said in that 60 Minutes interview, he's like, one of the reasons I didn't want to do this trilogy is, you know, I'm 70. I don't know if I'll be here when I'm 80. He's like, every decade the chances get lower. That's like the most George Lucas thing to ever say. But he said, I don't know if I wanted to do other things and make other films. So it's almost like George Lucas wanted to do these movies, but he felt like he didn't have time, which is kind of sad because he's still here and he would have done it, right? But like, if Carrie died and he gave her first big role and stuff, like, how do you think he would have handled her death? Would he have done something similar to how they did it, or do you think he would have wrote her out? And this is obviously pure speculation, but
I think he would have wrote her out.
Yeah. I
don't know, guys. That's tricky because
that's a tough one.
I remember post or pre The Rise of Skywalker, and we were very much like, all right, let's look at every possible option, PR wise, all this other stuff. And doing what they did was like, ultimately, it's one of those things where like a certain percentage of people are never going to agree, and we are aware of that. But still, this was probably the best way it could have been done. So to say that George Lucas would have done anything else might have been saying that he would have done something the wrong way. I don't want to say that, but like the less pleasing way for general audiences. So I don't know. It's hard to say because I feel like what they did with The Rise of Skywalker is like the best they could have done in the bad situation. Yeah. And so you got to think that George Lucas would be smart enough to be like, well, what's the best possible outcome where we could please 80% of people with this? Every other option is going to be 79% or lower. It's like they went with the 80%. I think George probably would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
I do want to go on record though that what I've heard of George Lucas's trilogy, just the same way as Colin Trevorrow's movie, I feel like I can look at it and go, there's some weird stuff in there that maybe would have been bad, but I think overall I would have enjoyed said movie. Same thing about Rise of Skywalker. There's some weird stuff in it, stuff that I don't understand, stuff that I hope they'll figure out, but I would like it. I think I would have enjoyed George Lucas's sequel trilogy, even if they were like, even if he came up straight to me and he's like, dude, it's gonna be wild.
Yeah, like,
We're gonna go into the midichlorians. It's gonna be Doctor Strange and Ant-Man all over the place, and we're gonna get into some really weird psychedelic stuff. And I would have been like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, you know what? It probably would have been something, and he would have had all that technology at his fingertips. Think about George Lucas and its innovation. Add 20 years to it. From when he made the prequels, and what he could have thought up and come up with. And it is sad in a way because here he still is. And sometimes people talk about him. Like someone had a tweet the other day. They're like, I bet George would encourage people. It might have been Phil Shostak. He was like, I bet George would encourage people to go out and vote right now. I'm like, George? Like people talk about George Lucas like he's dead. He's still alive. Yeah. He's around. He's still doing things. So it's like it makes me a little sad knowing that he probably does have that like hurt in his heart that he didn't get to finish.
It's like Monty Python. I'm not dead yet.
Right.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Like just remember, guys, what Arnold Schwarzenegger would have done.
And he's like, what?
It's like,
right, I'm right here. I'm making another Terminator movie. But yeah, it's like he didn't get to finish his story. And, people always say like, oh, we feel bad Carrie, passed on. She didn't get to finish the trilogy. It's like George is here and he saw another trilogy get made from his baby. And that's got to be tough. And he, good for him to like stay out of it. And he's like, when you break up with someone, he even said, like, you don't call them. You don't go to their house to see what they're up to. You cut it off and you move forward. And look at like Colin Trevorrow. He was just supposed to do one movie and he was bitter enough to put out his script. George Lucas is a good man. And it's sad that he didn't get to make his movies, but I completely understand why he made those choices, from the fan backlash to the prequels, not thinking he'd be around to do it. It's just one of those things, you don't like to look and say, oh, the what ifs, but having this discussion just makes me think about that. Like, we probably would have saw some George Lucas, some cool stuff. And I still love the sequel trilogy. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I think I probably would have loved all things, and maybe in another dimension somewhere there is that George Lucas like trilogy. But
George Lucas is like, it's like, you just move on. You just do other things. And Colin Trevorrow's over there playing Everybody Hurts, and he's crying as he hits send.
It's like...
Yeah.
Someone leaked this to Collider.
Yeah, it is funny. I was thinking about that earlier. Like, George Lucas did not handle his scripts the way that Colin Trevorrow did. You know what I mean? Colin Trevorrow was like, oh, they made a completely different movie. Here's what I would have done. George Lucas is like, I'd have done it differently, but you'll never know.
But what you don't know is Bob shredded the other copy.
The
only copy he has written in pencil. That's right.
He's afraid that if he were to rewrite it again, it would be all different. So he's like, oh, just whatever.
Yeah, he's a classy guy. George Lucas is a classy dude.
I'm going to ask you guys something. I think you'll know where I'm going with my pre-question before the real question. But you guys know how they sometimes like release like new Michael Jackson CDs and new Prince CDs and new Tupac CDs like after they're long gone? You think we're ever going to get movies that George Lucas created after his death?
Why are we killing George Lucas, man?
No, I'm just saying. You brought it up.
I'm still here.
I wasn't even thinking about George Lucas dying
voice
until
is
you were
that?
like...
That was Lawrence Kasdan more than anybody else. I don't know why I did that.
Was that Lawrence Kasdan?
I didn't mean for it to come out like that.
Grumbly
old man voices
yeah.
are Lawrence Kasdan. I'm still here, you whippersnapper.
I didn't mean for it to come out that way. It kind of came out like a Lawrence Kasdan.
It didn't sound anything like me. No, I don't think so. I think George Lucas he's a very controlling guy, like JW told us. He would not let. I think when George Lucas dies, it's over. Like he's taking all of his stuff with him. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's like one of those movies where everything deletes.
No, it's like an Egyptian mummy. Like
no, you mean like in The Dark Knight where he hits the button and all the stuff goes away?
Everything deletes.
Yeah, I think George Lucas is that way. And that's why he said like I could have gotten involved even after I sold it, but I would have just mucked everything up, and I didn't want to be looking over people's shoulders because when I made my movies and I handed off my movies, Empire and Jedi, to different directors, there I was over their shoulder. And he's like, I don't want to do that. So I don't see George Lucas wanting to hand more stuff off and be like, hey, I had this other stuff. Especially when he had that awkward interview with Anthony Carboni on the TFA red carpet, where he's like, I'm making movies, but no one's ever going to see them.
Yeah.
And Anthony Carboni's like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's what makes me ask the question is I know he's probably somewhere working on these movies and he's doing these full like 2-hour
He's just in his backyard for the camera. Just at Skywalker Ranch. People are like,
I don't know, man. I mean,
I
like,
think if you'd be doing
regularly
full-blown
visiting
productions with actual actors and stuff, and they're like, oh, I worked on this thing, but they can't talk about it. Like, they all know.
Yeah. Like,
and
George
he just has
Lucas,
one copy on Laserdisc at his house.
George Lucas already had the volume in his house.
It was his bedroom.
Yeah.
He almost lets that slip on gallery. He's like, this is cool.
Yeah. He's like, when I created the volume and gave it to John, it's like...
Oh, George.
All right.
Could you imagine Jon Favreau like being invited and he's like, hey, I heard you're getting ready to do a show. I'm going to give you this technology.
He's like, I'm going to let you take credit for it and everything. You just have to let me show up to your set with Starbucks and talk about stuff.
I saw what you guys were doing with the Jungle Book, and I just thought, nah, they're off. They're doing it wrong.
20 years ago. Come on.
They're doing it wrong. I'll just give it to them and send them on the right path.
All right. Well, that's our thoughts on... George's sequel trilogy, and if we find out more information or more quotes come out, or if George Lucas talks about it, we'll revisit it, of course. But
if he wants to come on the podcast,
yeah,
the huge. So let us know what you think about our thoughts and our speculation on George Lucas's sequel trilogy. The little that we know about it, we try to connect some dots, but hit us up in the comments on the YouTube video. Shoot us a tweet at RBATSWNN. Any way you want to get in touch with us, and let us know your thoughts in the comments and there and everywhere else. So hope you enjoyed that discussion, but now we are going to hear from you in Resistance Transmissions. So Lacey, what's going on?
Guys, it's time for Resistance Transmissions. So you guys know how this works. Every week, John puts out a crazy, wacky situation on Twitter. at RBATSWNN. And you guys give your answers. And I don't know what the scenario is. I don't know what the situation is. And I read them live right now. And we see what happens. Last week, you guys had me cracking up. Couldn't even get through it. So let's see what happens. All right. So the scenario is Han Solo wasn't convincing with his reactor leak story, but it could have been worse. What is a worse story Han could have given the Empire over the intercom to blow their cover? All right. First up is Ben at BL Hatton 585, and he said, "Corporate accounts payable Nina speaking. Just a moment."
Oh yeah.
Is that Office Space?
Yes.
Just a moment.
Just a moment.
Just a moment.
Up next is OT Nix at This Is Nix. Hey Nix.
What's up, Nix?
And they said Han Solo. Everything is under control. Situation normal. We're all fine here now. Thank you. What sound? Oh no, it's nothing. Just me learning how to play the Valicord.
Yeah, you know what? You learn from your mentor.
I'm rereading Aftermath, by the way, and they mentioned the Valicord as something that Tim Wexley and his father used to do on a regular basis.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, like, I don't know if you guys know the story or not, but his dad went away and was brainwashed and all this other stuff. But yeah, it was something that him and his dad used to do, and I was like, this is way before Solo, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Next up is Josh Turble at Jman76474.
Turnbull?
Turnbull.
Oh, okay. I thought you said Turble.
I thought you were saying
without
how
an N.
Charles Barkley says terrible.
Turble.
That's terrible.
You're an idiot. All right.
That tweet is terrible.
Han said, "Hey, we just saw an old man trying to sneak his way to the tractor beam control room, so you guys should probably head there instead of coming here. I'm not trying to deflect you or anything, but you know." And then the controller said, "We're sending a squad to your location."
It didn't work.
No.
So I don't know if I'm gonna step on anybody else's here, but that very similar to that was my first initial reaction. The worst thing he could say, which would be like, undercover people wearing stormtrooper outfits, and then immediately like, no, wait, that's true.
That's us. Right
That's
now.
literally what is happening. What am I doing?
Next up is Mark at _kind_awakens, aka DeKindAwakens. And Mark said, "Han, just doing some target practice and hitting every target as we usually do. We even found the droids we were looking for, so situation normal. We're all fine here now. Thank you. Does it smell like updog in here? Officer, what's updog? Han, nothing. What's up with you?"
I know that from The Office.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
When he messes up the whole time, he keeps messing it up. Next up is Adam Odell at Odell Adam. Hey, Adam. And he said, "Hi, this is Han Solo, former Imperial pilot, until I got kicked out of the Imperial... until I got kicked out of the Imperial Academy for having a mind of my own. Anyway, I'm here with Luke Skywalker and Chewie trying to break out Princess Leia. Do you think there's any chance you could prep a shuttle for us out of here?"
Probably not the way you want to go.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Next up is John M at Star Wars Dude 65. Hey John, and John said, "Hi, are you aware that your extended warranty on the Death Star is about to expire?"
Pretty important.
That's good.
And last but not least is Josh Hull at Incredible Hulk. That is good. That's a good name, Josh. He spells it with his last name, Hulk.
Did he come up with that?
Okay. What?
Incredible Hulk?
He did with the 2 L's, so his name is in there. You don't think that's clever?
That
like
feels like
Bigger
something you could have had a nickname in, like in high school or something. Like
Middle
when you get
school.
like your Letterman
clever.
jacket, you got a name or whatever. Yeah, you
Yeah,
could be
it's
Incredible
clever.
Hulk.
Like a bigger Hulk. Like bigger Luke, isn't it? Like Luke.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
2 U's.
All right, Josh. What's up, Josh? He said, "Don't come down here. Just Someone just said they were gonna blow up the bathroom like it was Home Depot.
Oh man, are Home Depot bathrooms known for incidents?
No, I just think that no.
I don't know. I don't.
Josh is telling us a very personal story.
It reminds me of Family Guy, where they said like libraries are where homeless people go to BM.
All right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
All right.
I just think he like picked a random spot.
Thank you so much for being part of the show. If you want to be on the show, make sure to follow us on Twitter at RBATSWNN. And then look out for this situation from John. But yeah, that's it. Back to you, John.
Josh just Hulk smashing home improvement store bathrooms. Just absolutely annihilating toilets and home improvement bathrooms.
All right. Moving forward.
A lot of Chipotle for Josh. All right. Sorry,
so
that joke.
uncomfortable. Go.
That was a crappy joke. Sorry. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching and being a part of TRB. We appreciate it. Make sure you do subscribe to the show. You can do that on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. We're actually seeing a lot more people make their way over to Spotify out of the audio listeners. So very cool, because it's an easy way to fire it up if you have Spotify. It's very quick and seamless. So very cool. So do subscribe to the show, because as we were just saying, a week from tomorrow, we're also bringing back the Mando Fan Show, and that is also going to be on the podcast platforms. So you're going to get the live stream of it Friday night, but then it's going to hit the podcast feeds after that for anyone who wants to catch up via just the audio. You don't want to see our faces. You don't want to see the Pedro Pascal scale. I get it. You want the audio? There, you're going to get it there.
Who would not want to see you, John?
Oh, you see I'm wearing the TRB hat today?
How's your head feeling?
Tight. It's pretty tight. But, yeah. StarWarsNewsNet.com for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. What's that, James?
I said that was tight. That's tight.
Yo, that's tight.
Yo, that's tight.
Did we talk about Teespring? Teespring.com/stores/resistance broadcast. Yeah, we did. We talked about the pins before, but we got Mando Fan Show shirts. We got the Resistance broadcast shirts. We don't sell James's golf gear, but we do have a lot of cool stuff over there. Like we said before, the Make Still to Happen pin, and maybe some other stuff coming down the line. You guys can find me on Twitter at Johnny Hoey and StarWarsNewsNet.com. James?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks.
Lacey?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin.
All right, everyone, enjoy your weekends. We'll be back with you on Monday morning. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay Star Wars. I don't know what that means. And as always, we'll see you around, kids.